Welcome back to the Emperor Atheist channel with your host, the Emperor Atheist. This particular topic is going to be on doubting Thomas. I know a lot of people are familiar with the disciple, according to the New Testament, the disciple of Jesus called Thomas. And this is going to be like a two-part video because it could be a real long video on this subject because it's kind of a thorough subject, but I'm not going to make the video long. Y'all know I don't like to make my videos long. But this particular video is on the disciple of Jesus called Thomas Didymus. And I'm going to explain the Didymus later because it has to play a part in what I'm going to say later about this so-called disciple of Jesus called Thomas from the New Testament. Now, basically, those who are familiar with the Bible, even if you're not really a student of the Bible, you know that Thomas was basically a skeptic, or what we would call an agnostic. An agnostic meaning one that just didn't know or wouldn't believe unless he seen some empirical evidence. When you go to the books, or the book of John, the Gospel of John, and I'm going to deal with the rest of the books too, as far as Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and how they deal with Thomas, and how John, the author of John, just all of a sudden made Thomas into almost like a Gnostic hero. And I'm going to explain why I'm saying a Gnostic hero, because the Gnostics basically elevated Thomas. Those who are not familiar with what some of the church fathers called the fifth gospel, or the Gospel of Thomas, which is the earliest non-canonical New Testament gospel that was ever found. And it was very Gnostic in nature, very aesthetic in nature as well, and I'm explaining that later. But first I'm going to explain the skepticism or agnosticism of Thomas and why it was even accepted by Jesus himself. When you think about it, when you go to, and first I'm going to read John. I'm going to go to, starts at John 20, 24 through 31. It says, "Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, 'We have seen the Lord.' But he said unto them, 'Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I would not believe.' A week later," this is verse 26, "a week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them, though the doors were locked. Jesus came and stood among them and said, 'Peace be with you.' Then he said to Thomas, 'Put your fingers here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe.' Thomas said to him, 'My Lord and my God.' Then Jesus told him, 'Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen me, yet have believed.'" Now, a lot of people are very familiar with this verse I just read out of the book of John. Very popular. But the thing, the main note I want to make right here is that Thomas was a skeptic. Thomas, the disciple Thomas, was a agnostic. These disciples that he had been with, his other 11, I would assume they were like brothers, told him, said, "Hey man, Jesus done came back from the dead. He's actually a zombie. He actually came back and he resurrected." Thomas was like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope. I don't care what y'all say." So I want to stop right here. This brotherhood that these disciples should have had, or we can assume that they had, didn't even make Thomas accept what they were saying. You know, it was like, "Nope, I have to see this for myself. Matter of fact, not only I have to see this Jesus, but I'm going to actually I have to put my hand in his hand where the nails were, so I can see this, where I can make sure." Thomas was like my favorite disciple, of course. So a week later, it says Jesus popped up, and Jesus didn't condemn Thomas. And this is the point I want to make on this Gnostic verse, and I'm going to explain what I'm saying about this in the authors of John and what they did. But it's very interesting, and I think a lot of people overlook it. Jesus didn't condemn Thomas and say, "Oh, you're going to some hellfire for not wanting to actually have physical evidence." He said, but he went on to say, you believe now because you see me. Damn right. Then he went on to say, "Well, blessed are those who haven't seen me but believe." Now, this is a very interesting chapter in the New Testament, and I'm going to explain why. First of all, it shows Thomas to be a skeptic, to be an agnostic, and I'm sure he's on the verge of atheism, and he probably should have been, because all of it is still bullshit. But I just want to make my point to the viewers and how important this really is, and how important Thomas Didymus is. Now, what does Didymus mean? And before I get into the meaning of what Didymus mean, I want to get into John, and the Gnostics' text. When we understand a little biblical history, Mark, which is the earliest gospel, and we know, Bible scholars know this, that whoever the authors of Matthew and Luke were, they copied from Mark. And John was like kind of totally different away from those three. And this is why the first three, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, are called synoptics, which basically mean a view together. But then biblical scholars also believe that there was another source in which they call the quail source or the Q source. They believe that the authors of Mark and Matthew and Luke even got from those sources. Okay, but this is just a belief of the biblical scholars. We have no way to prove it. We don't even know if this Q source exists. It's just hypothetical. It's a hypothetical source that they just call the Q source. But anyway, the Gospel of John is later than these three, okay? And at this time, the Gospel of Thomas is said by certain scholars to be within here somewhere. Now, the Gospel of Thomas is not in the New Testament canon, and it was those who ever studied the Gnostics, or it was found in Nag Hammadi, I can't remember exactly the year. It was found, I think, after the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls found in 1947 around Nag Hammadi, but the Gospel of Thomas is Gnostic in nature. And those who are not familiar with the Gnostics, Gnostics was a sect of people who believed in the spiritual asceticism. They always focused on getting away from the physical and just being totally spiritual. But the New Testament, as far as the first church, they rejected this particular gospel and didn't put it within the New Testament, but I think they should have. It has 114 sayings of this so-called Jesus. It's kind of strange in nature. But the New Testament is strange in nature. The whole Bible is strange in nature. So I don't see why they wouldn't add the Gospel of Thomas to the canonization. As far as time period is irrelevant because you don't have any originals of what you have in the canon anyway. And you don't really have a proof of when the original was even written or what the original said. So why not add the Gospel of Thomas? But in any event, the Gospel of Thomas is more, like I said, ascetic in nature and more Gnostic in nature. And the Gospel of Thomas made the disciple of Thomas more of a hero. When you look at Mark, Matthew, and Luke, there was they barely mentioned Thomas. There was no storyline of Thomas. But then we get to the book of John, which I just said was not a part of the synoptics, or in other words, the book of John, the Gospel of John, has totally different, goes in totally different directions from the other three Gospels. Because like I said, Matthew and Luke, whoever these authors were, they copied basically from Mark, who biblical scholars think got even from an earlier source that they hypothetically call the Q source. But anyway, John, the Gospel of John, totally goes in a different direction of these three. And he actually comes back to Thomas. Now, in this particular story, like I said, when I just read the famous, infamous verses of doubting Thomas, and how Jesus never condemned him for doubting or for not believing until evidence comes. Okay, but anyway, the point that I want to also make about Didymus, or his name, Didymus in Greek means twin. The Gnostics believe that Thomas was the twin brother of Jesus, not necessarily in a physical way, but in a metaphorical sense. In other words, the joining of the soul and the spirit. And those who have never actually studied Gnostic texts, it's actually a good discipline to study. Gnosticism, it kind of, I guess I would say, because I studied for many years, it kind of opens up a few doors of the kind of the things that you would actually, if you just read the Bible for what it really was and you just took it in, the Gnostic text seemed to kind of open up more doors and make the New Testament basically appear less stupid. And you kind of see what these people were thinking or how their mindset was. When you study these Gnostic texts, you'd be like, okay, this is what this may have meant, or this is what these people were getting at. They didn't mean this in a literal sense. But the Gospel of John, whoever he was, and who a lot of Bible scholars say that probably was a Gnostic writer himself because of the way that he also raised Thomas to a certain level, and in this story, and actually made Thomas' character a rational thinker. He made him a skeptic. He didn't just make Thomas a person that's just going to believe just by believing, but he made him be a thinker. He made him one to accept empirical evidence, and it's been famously dubbed doubting Thomas, which is good. because this is what agnostics and atheists do. Unless you bring empirical evidence, we're not going to accept it. It's a rational stance. And I think the Gospel of Thomas should be read by people. I think it should be read by atheists. I think it should be read by agnostics. I also think atheists and agnostics, oh, and excuse me, I'm not going to try to exclude religious people in this. I think Christians should read the Gospel of Thomas. I think Christians should also study more Gnosticism. Not to say it's going to change your mind about what you believe, but it will give you another view, and it will give you another position to see and to understand metaphorical writings and how these people wrote in those times. And it might open your eyes up to some things about the New Testament when you go back and read Mark or Matthew or Luke, and you see all of the different metaphorical, Gnostic, astrological things that are within your book. This book it's not divine. We've already come to that conclusion. It's not a divine book, but it was written by certain people who had certain levels of intelligence back in those particular times. But now you people are just ran with it, and you just take it for literalism, just zombie resurrections and human sacrifices, shit that just don't make no sense. A woman having a baby without the aid of sperm. And it's another thing that Gospel of Thomas speaks about as far as the gender role of male and female. And that's why I say y'all need to go actually and read the Gospel of Thomas as far as the female turning into male and things like this. It's an interesting read. And basically I kind of understand why they didn't put it in the New Testament, because it really would, throw things off a little more. It's already a disgrace how the four Gospels contradict each other, and how Paul contradicts the Gospels, and so forth and so on. So I guess the Gospel of Thomas, would not be included, because there would be more confusion. But like I said, man, I just invite all of y'all to actually go study that, and to go get the Gospel of Thomas if you've never read it. It's 114 sayings of Jesus. It's real aesthetic in nature. You can sense that. Most scholars realize that the Gnostics did write it. But like I said, man, I just wanted to make that point about the Gospel of Thomas and about him being agnostic, because there's no way you can deny that he was agnostic or he was a skeptic before Jesus came. And this is a position that we should all have. We should all be doubting Thomases until the evidence come, until we can put our hand in something and see it and feel it. Why? Because I told you before, I made videos before, we are empirical beings, point blank. Empirical, we are empiricists. Through experience, only thing we know is through our sensory perception. It's the only thing we know things to be a reality, through our sensory perception and through experience. So to accept a God, or to accept these crazy ass stories out of this ancient book, Bible, Quran, or whatever, Rig Vedas, whoever you want to get this stuff out of, Enumi Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, I don't care what you believe in, the Greek pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, to just accept these things just on the strength, just to accept them just because you read it, is irrational position. And you should all be agnostic or atheistic towards these things until you get more evidence. And this is the point, and this is why I made a video on atheism and what the definition of atheism meant. This is just a rejection of these things. It's a rejection of deities. It's a rejection of a zombie apocalypse, of resurrection. These things makes no sense. So in that respect, I'd like to thank y'all for watching my videos. Thank you for all my loves and my likes. And oh yeah, I almost forgot. The podcast will be coming up. I'm making this video now. I'm going to put this video in. Oh, I'm going to put some links about this video. The podcast will be coming up. This is a Saturday. My podcast will be coming up Tuesday. So that's another thing. And shout out to a brother of mine, Holy Kool-Aid. Those of y'all not familiar with this guy named Holy Kool-Aid. He's been on YouTube for a while, longer than I have. And he's atheist. He's trying to normalize atheism too. I want y'all to go to his video and hit on Holy Kool-Aid, or just look him up on YouTube. Holy Kool-Aid. He basically just doing his thing with straight videos now. So he just need a little support, man. For those who are supporting atheism or agnosticism, skepticism, whatever you want to call it, humanism, secularism, so many isms. Just go hit on Holy Kool-Aid link and check him out. But once again, man, thanks for liking my videos. I'm Emperor Atheist. I'm out. Peace.